This is the Hunt Quietly podcast. I'm Matt Ranella.
Hey Ken, how's it going, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I think I'm glad you jumped on with me because the topic at hand that led me to reach out to you was the reduction in 2,500 non-resident deer tags in Montana, and that post was on the Hunt Quietly Instagram feed. And your response to that caught my eye, and I'm like, man, this dude I need to reach out to and talk to. So I'm really glad you responded to me and jumped on here.
Well, that post stirred me up. If you if you didn't notice
Yeah,
my
yeah,
comments there, but it's not just Montana. It's the entire West has been making it tough for non-resident hunters. As and honestly, I left Oregon in 2023. Um,
so were you born and raised in Oregon?
I was born in California, unfortunately, because of the Vietnam War. My dad was a veteran and met my mom down there during the Vietnam War. And then I was born in California. But as soon as we could leave, we went back to his hometown in Central Oregon. And
Okay.
so I lived there for 40 years. So all of my basically childhood and adult life up till a few years ago.
Okay, and what do you do if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I'm a horse trainer now for about 25, 26 years. I've been a horse trainer.
Oh, right on. How's that? That sounds like a cool job.
It is a cool job. It's hard on your body. But I do a sport called reining, and stock horse. People have seen Yellowstone and the
Yeah.
horse riding and competitions and training and
Yeah,
messing.
yeah, absolutely.
Those were reining and cow horses in that show. So that's basically what we do. I don't work with as many millionaires and billionaires. Otherwise, I'd probably travel and hunt a lot more than I do.
Yeah, right.
But that's essentially the business that we're in. Yeah,
So did
training.
you grow up on a ranch?
No. I grew up on a small farm, a 25-acre
Yeah,
farm with
okay.
horses and cows.
Yeah, okay.
In Central Oregon. Yeah, and friends' dads were cowboys, and I grew up watching John Wayne and Bonanza and
Yeah, no doubt.
shows on TV, and that just led me into heading down that road.
Yeah.
I was a cabinet maker as a young guy. I spent about 16 to 18 years building cabinets, and the horse training overlapped, and so I was also in the construction trades for a long time. But so
So did you see opportunity dwindle in Oregon?
oh,
At,
from the time I was a kid, it did nothing but dwindle.
oh,
Um,
really?
it kind of peaked. Hunting peaked, I would say, in the mid 90s. And then there was some political decisions that immediately started driving the animal numbers down.
Yeah.
And then they started, it went from everything over the counter, rifle, archery, deer, elk, whatever you wanted to do was all over the counter. Then it went to draw, then it went to tighter draw and stricter draw. And I think, I mostly bow hunt, but I would apply for different rifle tags. I drew two rifle tags in 20, well, that would have been more than that, 30 something years of applying. I drew two rifle tags.
What?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
One took me about 19 years to draw. And then the next one took me 11 years to draw. And that was just because I got lucky in their draw. And those were for a decent unit in Oregon. But the numbers continued to dwindle on the herds. So they just keep dropping the tag numbers, and the hunts just get harder and harder to draw.
Well, I'm sure we're going to get into this, and but I'm like yourself. I travel to hunt. I live in Pennsylvania, and I'm a member of Epic Outdoors. I've been a member of them since like 2007 when they were hunt quietly hunting full.
Uh-huh.
Uh, So I've been following them, and those guys don't even recommend non-residents apply in Oregon because it's so difficult.
Right. Well, and that's part of why I moved. It not only was so difficult for non-residents, but as a resident, I saw it coming down the pipe that I wasn't going to get a hunt in my own state. And it's like, why live there when they're just making or there's another bill currently trying to get passed that would outlaw ranching and hunting altogether in the state. It's like the fifth or sixth time they've tried to do that. So when that
Jeez.
keeps coming up and they're so anti-rancher, anti-business, I'm cattle ranching adjacent with the horse training. I just saw the writing on the wall. They were just making life miserable, and the taxation and whatnot.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's like
I hate to get
California.
political on
Right.
your show. I don't know, but it all ties in together.
Yeah.
And Paul, you can't separate politics and hunting and politics and business because it's they're hand in hand. So I left, and sure enough, I was still a resident the last year in 23 when we left. I applied for my tags as a resident for an archery elk hunt, just what used to be over the counter 2 years earlier, and then did not draw. So
Damn.
it's like, well, why live where they're making it miserable for you if you can't do your favorite thing? I don't
Right.
on my Instagram account. It's just filled with preparation for elk hunting, climbing buttes and ruck hiking, all for backcountry bow elk hunting. That was, I mean, I lived to do it, and it went away essentially. I mean, you can
Yeah.
still kind of every few years draw a tag, go over on the coast and wade through blackberries and swamps to chase Roosevelt. But I mean, if you liked the old backcountry Oregon or this Western Rocky Mountain elk hunting with your bow, it's it's kind of going the way of the dodo.
Wow. So you relocated as a result. So
Uh-huh. So
you're
I left and moved to Tennessee.
okay, and you're doing the horse training there.
I've restarted my business here and doing everything here. So I have a small problem. Hunt whitetail here on my property and turkey and different things here on our own property and neighbors and things. So.
I'm the same way. I'm in Pennsylvania. I hunt locally. I'll travel to. I've been going to Illinois for quite some time. That's getting more difficult to do, and that's just for whitetail. That's getting access is becoming more difficult. Good access is becoming entirely pay to play.
It's the
Uh,
same thing here in Tennessee. If you don't own land or your neighbors don't let you on, I've got clients who didn't get a hunt this year, and they're like, "We just can't find anything under $3,000 or $4,000 to go shoot a buck on somebody's property. Not guaranteed a nice buck. Nothing where they're got trail cams and telling you there's shooters. It's just access is costing you thousands of dollars just to potentially hang a tree stand.
yeah, and we're seeing that because we're close to Ohio. I'm in Western Pennsylvania, and Ohio is quote unquote a big buck state, and these guys are charging $3,000 a person for a lease. And
Yeah.
again, that doesn't guarantee anything. And you see that more and more. Uh, that's not even talking about the Western states and how difficult it is to draw a tag.
So what I'm doing now is dabbling in, at least I can hunt every year here on my own property. We have good numbers. I didn't shoot one this year just because we're trying to manage the herd. My neighbors and we try to just leave the smaller bucks to grow. So we got
Yeah.
decent shooters. So I didn't shoot anything. They've got a decent whitetail out here. But we let several grow that if they made it through season, we'll all be shooters next year. So
Yeah.
we're trying some management with he's got a larger property around mine, and I have a kind of a small place in the middle. But I'm new to the whole whitetail thing. But it's all changing so much. Just plan on hunting here when I can, where every year. But I was fortunate enough to be able to buy a large enough property that we see deer go through every day.
Yeah.
But now as far as hunting elk and deer out west, mule deer and whatnot, I'm just applying for buying points in Wyoming, I'm not doing anything with Montana. I haven't really looked into Montana a whole lot, but I've got friends in Idaho. We're trying to get in Idaho going. We've got Wyoming points, Colorado points, Arizona points, Oregon points, and hoping to hunt every other year somewhere for archery elk as long as I can continue to do it. But that's another thing when it comes to access, is what's happening to our older folks. I mean, we kind of saw this come up on the Hunt Quietly Instagram page, and that they were the ones that brought that up. And he's been talking about access. They're big into access on there as well.
Yeah, Hunters for Access is huge, and I hope the industry sees how important an organization is like that, and then it's small, but it's growing.
Yeah. Well, it's just access in general. But imagine you've got I used to take my grandfather out, and I took him out till he was 83 years old. And you could walk a mile in and probably see some elk.
Mm-hmm.
With the overcrowding that we're seeing, and Matt Ranelli talks about the influencers and whatnot, and I mean, I saw them directly cause problems on hunts of my own and other hunts, and so many guys are out there now in every little location that to get a 65, 70, 75-year-old man into the woods to hunt, they got to go back 5-6 miles. And how do you do that with an old guy? So, I mean, we're taking away hunting for, the older generation, and we're killing the access for the younger generation. If they don't have the money to be, going everywhere and buy it. I don't know.
Well, I made that point. I made that point before. There was a show that touted a turkey hunt way back in the backcountry, and the one of the biologists was actually on the show, and he gave the exact location of where they were because he felt like he worked so hard and was so far back in the backcountry. And I'm that exact. I think I said this on a podcast before. I'm thinking there's a guy that lives there that's older that doesn't go that far back for turkey, but he might go a half mile back. And now you're blowing his spot up by hunting there and illustrating it on a TV show. Like, what does that guy do?
Yeah, it's changed so much. I mean, I watched my elk hunting spots go from nobody there as a kid to a couple of camps to you drive down the old logging road in Oregon, and there'd be 40 camps where there used to be one or two.
Yeah.
And you're at the edge of the wilderness. And so then how far do you got to go back in when you've got 40 camps and all those hunters hunting? And then how do you drag say a 12-year-old boy in Oregon, you had to be 12 to start hunting. So you're dragging a 12-year-old boy. That's when I started. And we would go in 3-4 miles. That was a long ways at 12 years old, packing a bow and snacks and water and everything you got to do to go in it. How do you get a young, maybe skinny 12-year-old boy back in farther than 3 or 4 miles and expect to have a quality?
Yeah, you don't.
I just don't know what to do about some of that, but I watched it disappear, all over areas that just didn't have anybody. And in the 90s to early 2000s. And then all of a sudden, last time I went back to one spot, I took my wife. We were newly married. This was probably 2002. And went to a spot I went to as a kid, hiked back in there. Some guy yelled at me for blowing my dog whistle and blowing all the elk out of the area, and berated my wife. And then we got down the hill, and I've been watching you all day follow these elk. And I was like, yeah, we've been following elk all day and having encounters. And, I mean, it left such a bad taste in my wife's mouth I never did see the guy. The guy was hiding, camoed up somewhere in a tree stand. I don't know if he watched the top of the mountain, but when we got to follow the elk to the bottom,
jeez,
he had been watching through binoculars this herd move up the mountain. And we were behind them, just following them along as they fed and went to water, trying to cut them off. And anyway, that was probably the first or second time I ever had my wife out with me hunting. And then she got scared by a hunter, mad that we were in his spot, which, well, he hadn't been there, for the previous 20
Yeah,
years.
it's a hell of a first impression.
But I don't know, it's getting out of hand.
So
It's
you go ahead. I'm sorry.
well, I was just saying, so I understand Montana and Oregon just cracked down on out of state. Why Colorado's changing their out of state. I think Wyoming just changed some of their
Yeah,
out of state. I mean, every one of those states is changing the access for out of state hunters. And it's like, I don't know. I grew up, my grandfather got me into hunting. He traveled. He was from California. That's where my mom was born, and he lived in California. Had a business in California. Had moved there from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to start a new life after the war, after World War II.
uh-huh.
And, but he would travel all over the West, Utah, Wyoming, whatnot. And they would. That was a family tradition. They would just find spots back in the hills, Idaho. They'd go to Idaho for pheasants. I see you got a pheasant on the wall there.
Yeah.
He used to have epic pheasant hunts in Idaho. And I remember the last time we went, the guy shows up and he's like, well, my wife says we could make money on this. So I know you guys have been at this day. My family had been hunting there since the 1960s, and this was 2000 something. And he's like, I think it's time we start making some money off of this deal. So it's going to be $300 per person per day to access the ranch to hunt wild birds. It's like, okay, well, I guess that's the end of that. We weren't going to pay $12 or $1,600 for the family to go chase pheasants for the day.
Yeah, man. I know. It's that stories like that are so rampant and common.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk to any hunter and there's a story about the place they used to go that's either off limits now, or they charge to hunt, or it's leased up. And in your case, being out west, could be under an outfitter control now. I mean,
Yeah.
these stories are just so common. And especially the pay to play. I mean, that is and I used to be a proponent of, like, I didn't have a hard time paying for access. Like Wyoming used to have this program where you can call. They had a list of landowners throughout the whole state.
Yeah.
And they would give you the PDF list of all their phone numbers. And then I mean, I must have called 400 people trying to find a place to hunt that was reasonably priced. So I have paid for access. I don't have a problem with that. But
I have too in the past. I belonged to a thing called Wilderness Unlimited in Oregon. And they'd give you a binder full of phone numbers and people that would allow access. And it was reasonably priced. But then when you realize that, on any given weekend, 3/4 of the places were, reserved, and you couldn't just, decide the weekend before to go hunting or
that's
whatever.
it.
You end up in public anyway. So I gave it up. I ended up just working harder to find public. I was a big chucker hunter. I don't know if you are familiar with chucker hunting out west.
Yeah, definitely. There's some chucker places here that are, the put and take kind of places.
Uh-huh.
Are chucker good to eat?
Yes, they're very good to eat. They're fabulous. We used to raise Brittany Spaniels, and chuckers are pretty abundant. I mean, they vary year to year, but out in Oregon and Idaho, in the canyons, the dry desert canyons, they're in the sage. They eat cheatgrass, which is an invasive weed.
Yeah.
And they were incredible. But it was every bit as hard as backcountry elk hunting. I mean, they climb to the top of a mountain off from a river bottom canyon, and then you hunt them on the top of this canyon ridge, rim rock, and then they'd fly a mile, half a mile, 2,000 vertical feet or more down to the bottom again.
Oh, wow.
And so you're just going up and down, up and down. You'd hike 12, 14 miles a day with your dogs, and it's all straight up and down shale rock and rim rock canyon walls and stuff with sagebrush and whatnot. But we do a lot of that. And that is something that the barrier to entry because of the physical fitness required is you don't, and how hard it is, you don't get as many guys doing that. You can't just ride around on an ATV or take your e-bike in
Yeah.
to go do that. And then you got to have a good dog helps, so having a bird dog. So that's one of the few that I did see it impacted by the side by sides. Guys would find areas that you didn't used to get to so easy. They'd get in there on their side by sides, and that impacted the hunting some. But that's one of the few sports that remain that we would do a lot of that wasn't impacted. But boy, everything else has been.
Yeah. And you talked about getting points, and I'm in the same boat.
Yeah.
Because I want to have options to go west every other year or every third year.
Yeah.
So I'm in the same boat. I'm getting points in Montana. I'm getting points in Colorado. I'm getting points in Wyoming. I'm getting points in Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
And I apply for Kentucky elk every year. I apply for Maine moose, New Hampshire moose, Vermont moose every year. I apply for Pennsylvania elk every year.
Yeah.
So
figuring out the Tennessee, I got to start applying for those elk. I've told my buddies, hey, if you manage to draw that tag, I can call them in for you. That's kind of been one of my things. I help beginners take them out and get them their first elk. A lot of times it's a cow or whatever, but you at least get them into seeing elk. Put an elk in front of them with their bow in their hand. That's always been one of my passions in my life. I love doing that with the first time elk bow hunters. So.
oh yeah, I'm sure that's so rewarding. Now, do you anticipate, like, have you looked at point creep in some of these states? Because, like, for example, Colorado used to be over the counter archery elk. It is no longer over the counter archery. It's not over the counter anymore.
Right.
Arizona, I would say my prediction is within 3 seasons, over the counter, at least archery deer is going to go away.
Well, it pretty much, I don't know all of it. The area we used to hunt an area down in southern Arizona for the winter mule deer hunt. Then when we started doing that hunt, it was just an over the counter drive down there and buy your tag.
Yeah.
And around that time, some popular influencers, 3 or 4 of them, started blowing up that hunt. I don't know if you want me naming names.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, you've got Brian Call, Gritty,
Yep.
Hush, Randy Newberg.
Hunting Public.
Yeah, all blew up that southern Arizona winter mule deer. All shortly after we had been. My brother lives down there, and I met a guy who had a spot, and so we started going. And we would go down and hunt and see in a week and a half hunt, you would see probably at least 180-inch buck every day. You would see 2 to 3 other 150-inch bucks a day.
Yeah.
So we're talking 4 to 5 bucks worth making stalks on in the cactus.
And I don't care where you are, 150-inch buck with a bow, that's a big deer.
Spectacular.
Yeah.
And then we at least every other day run across one that was 180 plus.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Pushing 200. For a few years we did that. And then those influencers blew the area up, and they switched the hunt to you had to it was no longer over the counter. You had to call in early in the morning, be the first in line, kind of like Idaho does their elk, or was doing their elk draw. I guess they've changed that coming up. But you'd have to be right on there, be on the computer, get your tag. So we did that. And then when they did that, they instituted a quota system for the units. So each unit down there had, say 30 deer or whatever was the quota.
Yeah.
You had to call in. Well, what that did that first year, what we saw is that it created a race just to get a buck.
Mm-hmm.
And so they started wiping out the younger class bucks. And then a few of the older class bucks were taken. Next year goes by, they do it again. The year, I forget how many month-long season it was, closes within a few weeks because the quota's full. And instead of guys just being out there glassing and hunting those big bucks and maybe not even getting a buck because they're trying to get the, weight on that big one, make that stock, multiple stocks a day. Guys were just going down there and shooting the first little forky 3-pointers. And I didn't go this year. Last year was terrible. I didn't go this year in January. My brother went down there, and instead of the seeing what we would see, he saw one, little 3-point buck the whole week and a half. So it degraded that much because of in the 4 or 5 year period, the smaller class bucks being wiped out, and you don't have any 4-year-old bucks.
And
so what happens? You don't have any 4-year-old bucks.
Yeah,
your nicer bucks. So
yep. And that is absolutely true. And I have a good friend. He was actually on a podcast with Matt and I early on, and he lives in Arizona and hunts Southern Arizona every year. And he emphatically believes that those players ruined Southern Arizona because of how publicized it was with their videos. And like, I think Randy Newberg had like a convenience store. Can you hear my dogs?
that's all right. No, it's barely audible.
Okay. All right.
I hear my cats growling at each other back here.
My son has his buddies over and they're leaving right now. But they put like a convenience store in the and so it's real easy to identify where they were and what unit they were in. And he absolutely shared the same story. Like, used to see really nice bucks down there. Now you have to work a little bit harder. You run into people. There's camps everywhere, and it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it went from dream hunting to I don't even know if we'll bother anymore.
Yeah, and not only
I was 1,000 miles from here now, or more. I forget, more than that. Anyway, it's a full 2 days, two 13-hour days to get there for me. So
yeah, you're not going to go down there to run into other people, and so mission accomplished. You're not going to leave your state now. At least not for that chaos.
Yeah, and Oregon's situation was completely different. That was mismanagement.
Yeah,
that was there's units. The Steens unit, for instance, in Oregon used to be probably, debatably the best mule deer hunting in the entire United States. Going back into the 80s, from the 60s through the mid 80s, even into the 90s, it was debatably one of the best mule deer hunting places for large mule deer, lots of them in the United States. And then in the early mid 90s, they did away with the cougar hunting, essentially.
Yeah.
And I used to hunt a place called Hart Mountain, which is a wildlife refuge, or an antelope refuge, and they would allow hunting for the antelope. They would also have managed hunting for the antelope, but they had some of the best bighorn sheep and mule deer hunting also in the world. One year, the governor's tag in Oregon, the guy went down there and thought he could shoot the world record mule deer out of that unit. It sold for some astronomical price, and he said there was one that was close, but he didn't ever end up shooting anything. But after that, it continued to go downhill. They don't even know if they have a viable bighorn population there anymore, because they were getting wiped out by cougars. The deer are wiped out there by cougars. The Steens unit, there's a guy, I don't know, you probably heard of Cameron Haynes. We're talking about him. So his buddy at the Bow Rack in Eugene, Wayne, he did a survey and a hunt down in the Steens unit. I don't remember if it was this year or last. He's finding that the deer herd in the Steens is effectively extinct. That there's not enough to breed. there just hardly aren't any deer. I went in there backcountry 5, 6 years ago. I didn't, I hardly saw a thing. It went from one of the premier hunting spots in the entire world for mule deer to they're essentially extinct. They're not viable. There's not a viable population in there um, to hunt.
So this is mismanagement of predators.
Mismanagement of predators.
And yeah. Did the influencers have anything to do with that?
It was ruined before the influencers got a chance, but
before they got a chance to do that.
Or other hunting around Oregon did. There's a few famous influencers there in Oregon that elk hunt that caused some problems for a few hunts. And I know those guys. I like those guys. I'm not going to throw them under the bus, but they didn't do any favors for Oregon elk hunting in many areas.
Yeah. And
yeah, that's all predators too. I mean, that's probably why, that's why the numbers were being dropped for the in-state guys as well, to where we weren't drawing in-state anymore, is because the wolves. I mean, they were saying, I would meet with the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. I was involved with an organization called the Oregon Hunters Association, and then they would meet with the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, and they would come in and do meetings. And we had a discussion one time about the wolves. And I was a president of the Ben Bowman there in Central Oregon. And so I would do my own surveys of guys as they came in from the various hunts, and we would all talk about our units. They knew I had spots to hunt, so they didn't mind telling me where they were hunting exactly and what they were seeing. And at the time, Oregon claimed to have 180 wolves. And if we counted the guys that I knew that were hunting, and myself, if we all counted the wolves that we saw while bow hunting in Oregon in a handful of units, we saw 180 wolves.
Oh, wow. So that's...
How did a handful of guys see every wolf in Oregon?
So you're talking the population is probably 3 times that or more.
10 times what they're claiming.
Yeah.
And I got it kind of a side conversation after a meeting, and they didn't want to tell us how they, and basically they're only counting what they get on camera or see bite from there. They're not boots on the ground in any of these areas and doing real serious surveys. They put up a few camera traps. They fly around a little bit. They say we have to, and the management objective for Oregon wolves was always around 200 or something like that. So conveniently, they were always under management. And it turns out there's closer to at least 1,500 wolves throughout the state of Oregon. And I would guarantee there's probably more than that, when every county has several packs of wolves in it. And, you're seeing them off the freeways and over on the coast and the elk management little parks and things that they have for the elk over there. So, I mean, it was just lies and whatnot. So not only you got the wolves, so the wolves will, steal a kill from the cougars, dig up the cougars will kill an elk or a deer, kind of kick some dirt, not over it, and come back and feed on it for a few days. Well, the wolves immediately find those things, go in and steal the kill from the cougars, or kill it themselves. There's a guy over there that runs a ranch, James Nash. He's an outfitter over there in Oregon, and he's documented. I mean, he's filmed the wolves killing elk on his family's ranch over there. I mean, so the wolves are taking plenty of elk on their own. Then they steal the elk from the cougars, and the cougars just go out and kill another deer or an elk. I mean, it's just insanity over there. So the numbers are just plummeting, and that state has no political will to change anything. Matter of fact, most of the people of that state are trying to just outlaw, ban hunting altogether.
Yeah.
So if there aren't enough animals to hunt, we'll stop hunting.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a deep dive.
As you can tell, go on forever about this stuff. I get pretty worked up over it because it's just sad to see. I've got a 18-year-old son that he was out there bow hunting and hiking with me. I mean, he'd hike the wilderness with me from the time he was 8 years old, and as soon as he could carry a bow and pull the weight for elk, he was out. I was putting elk in front of him, from day one that we could. And he's addicted to it as well, but it kills him to see it just changed in the 5 years, 6 years that he was a hunter.
Well, and going full circle on the whole issue, it's complex. I mean, we just talked about influencers, we talked about mismanagement of game, we talked about predators, we talked about blowing up spots via the internet. And I realize it's a complex situation. And but the reality of it is that we have a growing population in this country. I mean, just in our lifetime, the country has doubled.
Yeah.
You know, in
Yeah.
1977, there were half as many people in this country as there are now.
Right.
And, you know, so you have that. You have habitat destruction, you have habitat loss, you have game populations in flux. And now
Mm.
you have more predators on the landscape than you ever have before. And hunter numbers are at an all time high.
Right.
So it's like all these factors together, it's only going to get worse. And I don't know if like
I
talking
don't know
about
the
it.
answers either.
Yeah.
You know, I know Matt Ranella is, very against the influencer hunting and what they're doing to it. Access, he's pro access and trying to find access, but I don't know. I don't know if, you know, either one of those is going to fix anything. It will in certain spots for a few guys, but it looks like it's going the way of a thing where a guy gets to hunt every 4 or 5 years, whether you're in state or out of state. I mean, you might have some spots like Oregon where, if you're a resident, you can hunt the Oregon coast, and it's so thick. And until the predators wipe the elk out on the Oregon coast, those elk can escape the
And,
hunting.
and
And
you would think like that scenario would help the pressure, but it really doesn't, because from what I gather, those states that have those situations where you're getting a tag every 5 years or 6 years, when you get a tag, you bring everybody and your brother out. So
uh-huh.
those camps, even though there might be one tag holder, those camps have 5, 10, 15 people there scouting, running
Yeah.
UTVs. So it's like, it's not as cut and dry as just like, oh, well, there's going to be reduced tags, so I'm not going to see anybody.
And that's similar to the influencer thing. So imagine normally you'd go out with a buddy, or you'd go out with your dad or your grandpa, or the whole family's in camp, and you got an uncle, a grandpa, and a father. There's maybe 4, 5, 6 guys in camp max. When the influencer thing came along, and those guys are all splitting up and going 2 by 2 and hunting various areas. At least that's how we used to do it
Yeah.
back when I was a little kid. Now with the influencer thing, the first time I had a hunt, I was in the Hells Canyon, got ruined by influencers. Um, we're parking at an old logging road, and we're gonna hike in with the wind, get down into a canyon. And we knew about a herd that we had left bugling the night before. And so we've got about a 3 mile hike to get the backside of this canyon and then drop down in there where the elk are with the wind. Well, as we're driving through there, we saw 6 to 8 guys jump out of two crew cab pickup trucks with cameras and bows and all that, and dive all in together into the same hole. Went straight, didn't, they blew the hunt because they weren't watching the wind and all that. But so now you have 6 guys all together hunting one herd, leaving that amount of scent, leaving that amount of, I mean, they just blew everything out of the country and pushed it back so far down into the Hells Canyon, we couldn't even access them anymore.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I mean, like you said, a guy gets a tag, everybody goes with him because they're all excited because they can't hunt, but the one guy has a tag. So 3 guys will call and scout and be on ridges over here and there and everywhere, glassing for you. So if you put something up, you can go, what is that? What is that doing for the experience? So the other guys that draw a tag run across his 4 buddies that are with him on the ridge, glassing up it's a shame. It's really a shame. I don't know that it'll ever return. And then you get a lot of guys that are like, oh, if you just work hard enough, the bucks are still there and the bulls are still. Yeah, they are. They are. Last time I went to Colorado, I went on foot with the pack on my back, passed by. They had the muzzleloader season going. So there was outfitters dragging muzzleloader hunters in, and the outfitters were dragging them in 5 miles. So I went in 8 on foot, killed a bull with my bow. On the way out, all the guys with the muzzleloaders are like, we didn't even see anything. I was like, yeah, because you guys chased the elk in, from the 5 mile marker back to the 8 mile, and then there was
nobody there at 8.
Elk all over.
And
But
that is a good ways back.
Though. Who can do that?
Right. I mean, I
walk 10. My app on my Apple Watch, where it says I average 8.5 to 10 miles a day walking every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 52 years old. That's a lot for an old guy. Most young guys aren't doing that. Even when you start getting in, even if you're trying to get in shape to hunt, most guys are not doing 8.5 to 10 miles a day. So, I mean, that hunt dang near killed me. And I'm in short of running marathons like some of these influencers guys, but I'm in dang good shape. I mean, and that hunt, it just about killed me. So when these guys are like, oh, it's fine. The elk are there. You just got to work hard. You're not willing to grind. You're not. Should a 12-year-old kid have to go 10, 11 miles back in with camp on his back for his first hunt?
Yeah.
It's not possible.
Yeah.
And places like Oregon, with all the logging roads, there isn't 12 miles between roads.
Right.
I mean, they don't have much wilderness. It's not like Wyoming and Colorado and Montana, where you have huge tracts of wilderness that might be 60 or 100 miles across. Oregon, I think Oregon's largest wilderness area is like 30 miles across. So that's 15 miles. Well, one guy goes in 15 miles from one side, one guy comes in 15 miles from the other. They meet in the middle. So it just really isn't. There really isn't play in Oregon. I think Washington's similar. You can't get far enough and away and back far enough from these guys. And like I said, should a 12-year-old kid have to be able to do that just to go hunting for his
and for anyone for that matter? I mean, you shouldn't have to go 8 miles back to see elk. I mean, because even 5 miles, that's a pretty good ways back.
It's a long ways with uphill.
Yeah, especially the terrain.
Wilderness in Colorado, and you start at the bottom of a river drainage, and it's 5 to 8 miles continuously uphill, pretty much. You're switchbacking and whatnot, but it's uphill the whole way. That's a long dang ways. And then when you're a flatlander and you're going from 1,000 feet or 500 feet, and now all of a sudden you're at 11,000 feet and you're trying to climb like that, it's like it's not feasible for your even your fit guys.
Oh, I packed a caribou out somewhere in the 3 mile to 4 mile mark in Alaska, and I tell this story. I'm not ashamed to tell, but that was the closest I've ever come to crying as a grown man. It was the worst pack out of my life, because it was just tundra and tussocks after, rolling the ankles, sinking down in the bog. And oh man, it was
alders and everything you got to fight.
Yeah.
Through.
Yep. Crossing creeks. Yeah. It was awful. But
yeah, we're packing elk out of the Hell's Canyon drainages near and around there, up out of the bottoms, a couple, 3-4 miles. And it's, I hunt with a former veteran, a disabled veteran. And he's still in shape, but he got injured in war. He's burned and has it's tore up, I guess you could say. But and he's getting older. He's 10 years older, so he's 62, 63. I mean, that's all we can do. That's tough. And he's a tough son of a gun. But man, packing those elk up out of those bottoms across the ridges through downfalls and whatnot, it's hard. But that it should be. I'm not saying it shouldn't be. I'm not saying it shouldn't be. You shouldn't just expect to go a mile and shoot an elk off the side of the road.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that. But when it's gotten so packed and there's so many people everywhere, blowing up the spots, they're just getting further and further back, and you're hunting more and more days to to even have
And
an
and the other thing is too, going back to the whole Southern Arizona, the other trend that I see is the long range shooting, both with rifle and bows. So not
yeah.
only these guys going down there with over the counter, but they're shooting 60, 70, 80, 90 yards. And there's some guys that could do that. Like,
Well,
um,
I hang out with tournament archers. We'd sight into 110.
yeah,
um, but you're hoping for a shot no more than 50, 60 yards, which is a chip shot for a tournament archer. But most guys, that's way too far.
yep.
And most guys shouldn't be shooting past 45 or 50. You see it at the archery tournaments, shoot a lot of 3D. You'd see it at the tournaments. There's guys that can barely, especially if it's unknown. There's guys that they're wounding targets all over on the unknown 3D at 40 and 50 yards. Yeah, that's one thing that with all these influencers, people used to always love to long range shoot. We've been long range shooting forever. Now you're pushing 1,200 yards and farther with your Creedmoors, but back in the day we'd shoot 25-06s and 270s and 7mm mags and all, and we'd put a target up at 800 yards
Uh-huh.
and work on it, but none of us were ever going to take a shot past 300, 350, maybe 400 yards, even with the 12 and 14 power scopes. Now I think the whole thing about wanting to get that long range kill on video and see the trace of the bullet and all that, and you're seeing these 600 and 700 yard shots on game. I don't know. I get it that people enjoy it. For me, it's pushing the ethical boundaries.
No doubt. No doubt. I agree. And I think, there are guys that could do it, but most hunters don't have that skill set to do it. And myself included. I could hit, my backyard, a 50-yard target all day long with my bow, but in the woods, in a tree stand, under duress from the nerves and
Yeah.
limbs and environmental conditions, it's just not a shot that I'll ever take.
Right.
Even at 30 yards, like I've missed deer 30 plus yards, and I'm like, man, I'm glad I missed completely because I had no business taking that shot.
Yeah. And deer are different than elk.
Yeah, much bigger target with elk.
and and I know a lot of tournament archers. So a tournament archer on an undisturbed elk at 70 yards, no wind,
Yeah.
flatland, done it myself,
Yep.
just pinwheel them. Your average guy can't do that, but and that and the rifle guys that are tournament long range rifle shooters are going to say, oh, 600 yards, but I'll be the first to admit I lost a nice bull at 35 yards one time. Which is that's a done deal.
Yeah.
But he was walking. I called and stopped him. He feet came to a stop. I released, and just as he took a step forward, and even at 35 yards, that elk took a 3-foot step. At just as I touched the trigger, you can guess where that arrow went right in his guts.
Yep.
And got in with the herd, went down a canyon, never found him. Stuff can happen, but boy, it's sure, a half a step at 600, how much movement, that's a long ways. They're going to travel a lot farther when that deer or elk is at 600 or 700 yards. Because of the time it takes for that bullet to get there, crossing that. I don't know. It's one of those things. You hate to crap on somebody's parade, piss on somebody's parade, so to speak, when they enjoy the long range shooting and all that. But are guys pushing it out further than what they should be just because it makes a good video?
That is key right there.
Archery,
Could you say that again?
the same with the archery.
Yeah.
Both. you know, 70-yard, 80-yard shots with a bow, 5, 6, 7, 800 yards with a rifle. I mean, I, I've always found you can always get closer than 500 yards in most cases. Shooting across a canyon gets interesting, but then when you're doing that, you've got so much, you know, wind variability, and when you're shooting across canyons, I mean, then I don't know. That's a whole other subject. That's a whole other can of worms. I don't know if I'm qualified to speak on it, but it does. I don't enjoy, as soon as I see the videos where it's like, you know, long shot on deer, kill shot, you know, and they're trying to show the trace of the bullet. I just pass on by. I just don't. It doesn't interest me, just because I hate to see what limited game we do have potentially getting wounded. It's going to happen. I mean, that's not.
Yeah, I remember watching a Best of the West, that TV show, and this lady was shooting 6, 7, 800 yards at a bighorn, and she shoots at it, and it's facing her, and she shoots it right in the mouth, and it doesn't. I mean, it literally travels down the throat corridor into the central cavity and doesn't exit. So and it just drops.
Yeah.
And they're hooting and hollering, which I get that. But I'm thinking to myself, there's no way she planned for that. She got lucky, and she could have wounded a beautiful bighorn ram.
Yeah. And how hard is it to draw a tag for a bighorn? I mean, it's almost impossible. Some of us will never get a chance to hunt those things
ever. Yeah. What do you think about the prices as a non-resident? Because I've noticed that continually go up throughout the West.
Yeah. 1,200 to $2,000 to hunt elk for an out of state, you know, non-resident in some of these places. It's gonna have its effect of keeping guys away. I mean, that's the whole point. It's just to discourage non-residents. And if you do, you know, if you're want to do it, you're gonna pay, and they'll get their money. You know, they'll get their money out of you. They're already getting the point fees and all of that for all of us that just buy points year after year after year, and then they get your 1,200, 1,400, 1,600 bucks or whatever, you know, whatever the it's the special draw in Wyoming that you.
Yeah, it's basically we'll give you better odds if you pay us more money.
Yeah.
And it's kind of bullshit. I don't like the way it's going, because and not that I'm like on this hero mission, but it definitely does. It like eliminates the common hunter from ever traveling. I mean, you could basically just say like, hey, you're never going to come hunt elk in Wyoming because you have to spend $2,000 before you leave your doorstep.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's usually on federal land, right? So it's owned by
everyone
in the United States. Growing up as a kid, my grandfather he owned a gun store. And that's how I got into, I mean, I was just hooked on shooting and hunting, and I'd sit in the gun store and listen to tales as guys would come in from Alaska, they'd come in from Montana, and they'd come in from Wyoming, and they'd, you know, show their pictures, and my grandpa would keep a book on the counter of all his clients, and they'd slip their photos in the book, and you could just peruse everybody's, you know, and there's the bragging wall and stuff. And that was the stuff dreams were made of as a kid. You'd just dream of having, you know, holding those antlers up on a big buck out of Wyoming, or the quintessential elk hunt in Colorado in the snow with the elk on the back of the horse coming out of the wilderness, you know. And so my grandfather would get me Outdoor Life magazine, some of those, and you'd see the hunting, and you just dream of going to these places. And, you know, back then it was feasible. It was like, all I got to do is, you know, when I can go buy a tag and take my, you know, drive my truck, or, you know, dad can take me, and we'll just camp and go hunt. And it just could be a family vacation. Now it's a serious financial hit. I mean,
Dude, right?
or if and that's if you can get the tax, right? So my son, like he's 18, he's in college now, so he's not going to be college starts during hunting season every year. So it's like, okay, well, I've been buying him points for Colorado uh, since I don't know, since he was like 10 years old or whatever. So he'll have all these points for Colorado. He should be able to get some kind of hunt for his, it's going to be his graduation present. But it's like, we're starting to save up now for 4 years away to take him on that, on that hunt somewhere. I've got family in Colorado, so they kind of help us with where to go and where to stay and whatnot. But yeah, it's a big. Gone are the days where you just drive out there, buy your tag, and go hunt and stay at a Motel 6 or stay in a campground or whatever, and park along the side of a logging road and enjoy the hunt. Because once you get there, there's so many guys you can't even find a camp spot anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah. I hate to be that old FUD complaining about the good old days, but it's tough. It's tough.
Hey,
I didn't understand how tough it would be out here in Tennessee when we moved out from Oregon on access here. You always see everybody's hanging in a tree stand somewhere, and then to find out how much they're paying to just hang a tree stand on 20 acres and by some guy's field. It's crazy.
I was gonna say, like, I've hunted Colorado quite a bit, and the one unit I think took 2 points when we hunted it, and then it takes 6 points now. Another unit took 6 points when we hunted it. It was 10 or above. I think we drew it with 11 points, and it's only getting worse. And these units aren't. The sad thing is that these units aren't producing like they used to.
Yeah. They had a hard winter kill, winter before last, I think it was. Might have been, yeah, 2 winters ago. So, I mean, they might be starting to come back in the next couple years.
Yeah.
That has a big effect too. Not just all the hunters, but 4 or 5 years ago, they had a big winter kill all throughout, Idaho and into Wyoming and
Yeah.
Utah and all that. So you get those big winter kills that'll set things back 4, 5, 6 years before the hunts start to improve. And then, yeah, and now Colorado's adding wolves to the mix.
Right. We hunted a unit for antelope in 2011, and that unit actually had surplus buck tags. And now it takes like 4 points to draw.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that extreme. And I get it. These are very complex issues as to why the populations are fluctuating, and the hunter pressure. It's not all hunting pressure, that's for sure. But
well, that certainly has changed. And then you couple the increase in the number of hunters, with the decrease in the populations of the animals they're pursuing.
yeah.
So Idaho was a real fine example. They were kind of ground zero for the whole wolf situation. There was one year I went into Idaho with over the counter deer hunt, and I was in the Frank Church wilderness, and I was laying in my camper. I don't know, this 20 something years ago. I was in my mid 20s. But I was just laying in my camper, just up a road right at the edge of the Frank Church Wilderness, and getting ready to go to bed. And I had 12 different bull elk bugling around me in camp that night. And not that winter, but the next winter, a guy went in on a snowmobile and documented something like 100 elk killed down in the valley that was just below where I had been. And the pack of wolves went in there, caught him in deep snow, killed him, And a lot of them, what they did is they ate the back end out of the cows and pulled the fetuses out and consumed the fetuses and left the rest of the elk. Just decimated them in there. And that was year after year after year like that. And then it got to the point where, I mean, all of that area around the Frank Church and the central Idaho just got wiped out. And it's coming back slowly. But you're starting to hear guys from Oregon, they'll be over there hunting and their vehicle gets vandalized because, they don't want out of state hunters. And then an Idaho guy will be over in Oregon, famous hunter. What's his name? Rocky Mountain elk calls with his dad. Forget his name.
Huh.
Elk 101 is his elk hunting channel. And
is it not the elk shaped guy, is it?
No, it's not elk shape. It's another older guy. Anyway, he was over in Oregon and his vehicle got vandalized, and they put a note on there that said, go back to where you belong. So it's happening in every state. Everybody's pissed off at the out-of-state hunter.
Yeah.
And would they be if it just wasn't overcrowded and not enough game to be? I mean, I don't remember anybody hating on anybody back in the, in the 90s. You just go to Idaho or you go to Oregon or you go to Wyoming. They were all happy to, all the guys in the cafe were happy that you were there,
Right. You were providing income to the economy.
Buying gas at the gas station,
Yep.
Snacks at the store. You'd run across a rancher. He'd give you, oh yeah, they're up this road and that way. And yeah, we always get good bulls and whatnot up in there. And now it's downright unfriendly when you go out of state anymore. I mean, for the most part, last time I was in Colorado, the people who make their living adjacent to all the hunters coming in, of course, they still appreciate it. And the outfitters and whatnot. Of course, anybody making money off of it appreciates the out of state guys, but boy, it gets downright almost belligerent with the locals anymore. And I mean, I can't blame them.
Right. I know I'd be pissed if there was an influx of non-residents coming into my area every year. Yeah. I know I'd be really pissed, and I can't blame them. But you hope that we could all work together to make game populations more prominent and strengthen them and work to have good habitat and good access for everybody. I know it's sometimes after I have these conversations, it feels like a pipe dream.
Yeah. But on the out of state thing, it's like, well, what is out of state? Because you could live in Ontario, Oregon, and Idaho is 2 miles away, and your closest elk hunting is actually in Idaho.
Yeah.
So are you really out of state, but you got to pay for it? And then you got Oregon plates on your, it's like the whole out of state. It's like, man, to hate on each other. I mean, we're hating on the influencers, I guess, but hunters in general shouldn't be hating on each other. We should all be seeking ways to fix these issues. I hate to just be a complainer and not have answers. But I don't have answers for any of this.
Yeah, I don't either.
I listen to Matt Ranella and some of the things he's trying to do and push. It's a small drop in the bucket here and there. I'd love to hear. Do you have like definitive thoughts on what your answer is to some of these, issues?
I think Matt is definitely bringing some momentum to the movement where people are talking about overcrowding. People are talking about influencers and how they're impacting areas and hunt quality. People are now talking about things that they weren't talking about 2-3 years ago. And I'll tell Matt, because I talked to him right before we got on. Just the momentum is there, and it's us having conversations like this, where we could reach out. And I didn't know you before we started talking. And here we are. We've been talking over an hour about these topics, and it's hopefully people listen to this and go, yeah, man, some of these things they're talking about are making sense. And maybe I could do something. Maybe I could help out. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I think if Matt doesn't do another thing, he'll be credited for bringing these topics to light, because nobody else is.
Yeah, that's when I started following. I've heard of Matt through his brother's podcast. Yes, Matt. That's the one thing Matt is doing, is he's bringing up the conversation, and I wish his brother was addressing it as well.
Yeah.
But they don't make money if less hunters buy First Light camo and less guys watch hunting content.
Right.
So I can see why they don't bring up some of this stuff.
It's a glaring component in the conversation for sure.
Yeah. I mean, they cover stuff like, the corner crossing situation, but
yeah, those are all great topics. And Meat Eater just did a really good podcast on bison restoration. I mean, Meat Eater puts out great content.
Right.
And I think, Matt would recognize that they are doing some good things, but what they're doing with hunting media, it comes at somewhat of a cost.
Yeah.
We could debate on what cost that is, but there is a cost to bringing people into the sport and basically crowding an already overcrowded pastime. And I think Matt gets misunderstood. Matt gets accused of being a gatekeeper. That's not the case at all. Matt wants to see people hunting, but he doesn't want to see people hunting for the wrong reasons, because they watched an influencer with a YouTube channel. Now they're going to go out, and the first thing they're going to do is not only are they going to buy a bunch of gear, but they're going to buy a camera. I mean, people don't even take vacations if they can't post on it social media.
Yeah.
They'd rather not go. And I think Matt's concern is these people are coming into hunting for the wrong reasons. And I agree with them.
I'd see it time and time again. You'd see a new guy show up. You've been hunting an area, and all of a sudden you see a new guy show up, and he's got, at the time, he's got Under Armour camo, a Hoyt bow, a Phelps elk bugle, and an XO pack. And I hate to say anything bad about XO packs. I actually got a cousin who works for the company. But and then they'd have a GoPro strapped to their chest,
no doubt,
or on the end of their bow. And I'm like, I could strike up a conversation at the trailhead or whatever. This is my first year hunting, elk. Do you have any ideas on, where to go and where they might be and whatnot? And it's like, this is your first year, and you're filming it.
It's almost a prerequisite to hunt.
Yeah.
And I think that is where, we've talked about this at length. If you're going to be, if you don't find hunting on your own, and my wife said this, which was, I repeat this quite a bit, because explaining to my wife, we did an episode on R3, and I was just talking about it. She's like, what's R3? And, she's like, there's people that's their job to recruit new hunters. I'm like, yeah. She's like, that just seems kind of wrong. If you don't find it on your own, you shouldn't find it at all.
Yeah.
In other words, if it's not in you, if it's not deep inside you spiritually, or I hate to sound like I'm preaching, but maybe you shouldn't find it. I'm like, damn, I agree with you. If you don't find it on your own, you shouldn't find it at all.
Mentioning spiritually, I mean, it is a spiritual. My brother and I were just talking about this, like getting away and being in the woods and being disconnected from your phone and climbing a mountain and then pursuing this animal. 10, 12 mile days in canyons, and then finally having success. I'm embarrassed to say it took me 20 years of bow hunting for elk before I killed my first bull.
Mm-hmm.
And it was elk hunting media that gave me some tips. And then I started killing elk every year. So it benefited me. But how many guys now go out there and kill elk in the first and second year with a bow because all the tips and tricks and you
Yeah.
do that. This is how you call, and this is, hey, it's great. I mean, but the barrier to entry has been wiped out. Used to be your grandpa would take you in out there, throw you in a Pendleton flannel shirt, and you didn't have Gore-Tex boots, and you'd be freezing your ass off and getting wet and climbing mountains, and half the people probably quit because it was miserable. And then there are those of us that it was a spiritual, and we just got hooked, and we don't want to do anything. I mean, going to work is sheer misery because all we can do is think about our next hunt.
I absolutely agree. Hunting is very, very spiritual for me. When I'm out there, I'm constantly in reflection mode. And like you said, when you get something and you shoot anything you shoot with your bow is just an accomplishment. So yeah, I'm with you. But like you said, I'm not saying, like, I totally understand when people want to utilize the resources that we have. We live in an information era. I mean, there's everything's a button away. You want to, like, right now, I saw a thing where you can actually do a virtual training thing with Cam Haynes, where you put on the VR, and he's there with a program, right there with you, showing you how to shoot. And at least I think that was the premise of this ad I saw.
He should make you show your marathon time before he lets you.
Yeah, right. I mean, that guy,
increase that barrier to entry just a little bit.
Yeah. He bothers me sometimes so bad. I mean, I know, yeah.
I think at everybody's heart, they love hunting and they want to share it.
Yeah, I get that.
And a lot of the original, like a lot of the guys in the Cameron Haynes and the Ranella and the Clay Newcomb, in that era. But there's a lot of these Gen Z guys that it's just strictly, you see it as a means to internet, go viral, whatever.
Yeah. We did a podcast, and I forget the exact number, so I won't misquote it, but the Discovery credit card did a survey on their users about their travel patterns, and they asked a series of questions, and it was something like over 60%. Don't quote me on that. It was a very high number.
Yeah.
Said that if they couldn't post pictures of their vacation, they would rather not go on vacation. So that's how connected we are to sharing our experiences, where you'd rather not have the experience if you couldn't share them. That's how important it is. And hunting is no different. So I do get the community that we've created online, where you can, hey, I reached out to you, dude, and I feel like I feel like I know you.
Yeah.
And I've been talking to you for like a little over an hour. So I get the community, but what I think what people miss is we don't hunt because of this community.
Right.
If the community didn't exist, we'd still be hunting.
Yeah.
I think that's where I differ from the newbies, that they're like, oh, well, I'm going to hunt only if I could take my camera, or only if I could share this great buck that I shot. So,
yeah, I mean, some of us, my brother and I, we had BB guns, and we lived outside at 8 and 10 and 11 and 12 years old, and we lived near government land, BLM land out in Oregon. We had BLM land within hiking distance, and we would just, if we thought about it, we'd throw a water bottle in a little backpack, and the old plastic bicycle ones that leak like crazy. But we didn't have all these fancy water bottles we have now when we were that age. But
right.
Take our BB guns, pellet guns, 22s, and it was just pursuit, learning following rabbit tracks and learning where the rabbits were in the rock piles, and learning where we called them rock chucks. They're groundhogs, or, marmots. We love to hunt those, chipmunks and squirrels, and for anything we could hunt and learn their uh, their habits and track them and trail them, and coyotes, and we go into these caves hoping we'd find a cougar. Man, if we'd have found a cougar with our BB guns, we'd have been in trouble. But it was just it was just the pure enjoyment of being out. At that age, back then there was no social media, and I mean, I'm guilty. I've got, if you look at my Instagram, it's full of chuckers and elk and deer and pheasants and shooting, and so it's enjoyable to share that stuff with people. I love seeing a buddy's hunt. You go on, guy was in Idaho, and you look up his hunt and they got good pictures. Whatever. I love that. I love going on Instagram and seeing my friends' hunts. But most of them are not doing it strictly for that purpose. And it makes you wonder how many guys are, like you said, wouldn't go if they couldn't share the hunt. Are they going to go as hard? Are they going to go back as far? Are they going to take as long of shots? Are they going to stay out as long? If there's no content to be made from it.
Yeah. And I go back and forth on how I feel about sharing pictures. And I'm not like, it's not black and white for me, but I think I draw the line when if you're sharing your pictures to try to make money, if you're trying to gain a sponsorship, that's where I draw the line. But I've shared pictures online of the stuff I've killed, but I'm not trying to make money off of it.
I'm torn there. I don't think you should make money off the kill, but I don't know. 6-8 years ago, I was in the process of starting a bow shop, and I would tag different companies and whatnot, hoping to be able to just carry their equipment.
Well, that's different. That's a business. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then I would promote. I'd carry a certain bow, and so I'd show the bow in the picture, and and the arrow, and these are the arrows we're using, and the bow we're using, and you can get them at our little, we had a small bow shop, and I was trying to make it bigger. That was a whole other.
Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. I could see the point in that.
But I didn't just kill game and hunt harder to, it's different than what we seem to see,
Yeah.
Elk shape, and some of these guys, they got to kill 4 elk a year, 3 elk a year to promote their business.
Oh, dude, we've had this conversations where, like, I think John Dudley killed 41 animals, or no, was that Aaron Snyder?
All of them.
Yeah.
All those guys. Yeah. I mean, how many freezers can you fill, and how much are you going to eat? I get that you love to hunt. Once it gets past, maybe you hunt 2 weeks in Oregon and you hunt 2 weeks in Wyoming, or, and you get 2. I mean, there's a month straight of elk hunting. I mean, to get 3-4 elk, I mean, they're stressed. I've seen it in their videos, how stressed they are. They've got to get one now because they've got to get to the next state to get that next hunt filmed.
Yeah.
And I've got 6 days to, there's famous guys out of Oregon. Oh, we got 5 days to get it done here before we're off to Colorado. And then we got 4 days to get it done there before we're off to, and it's just this stress. We got to get it done. We got to kill. We got to get a video made. We got to have a kill shot on video, so then we can get on to the next state and kill some more.
Yeah.
It leaves a bad taste in the guy's mouth.
Big time.
All the guys who love to get into the sport, new guy, and we're talking about a limited amount of animals. In Arizona, we talked about the quotas and how you're having to watch the quota. You get there, January 1st, you're hoping to hunt the rut, and you look and they've already got 10 of the 30, and then a couple of days they've got 15 of they got 23 of the 30. Are we even going to be able to hunt a full week? I just drove 1,800 miles, and I'm not even going to hunt more than 4 or 5 days.
Right.
And like you said, the actual numbers of the animals are low. You've got so many guys out there. I have a feeling, I mean, we were talking about what are the answers. Another 4 or 5 years of this being so difficult, I think a lot of the guys are just going to quit. And then the diehards will just remain. But then if that's the case, are there going to be enough diehards remaining and enough kids having been brought up in 10, 15 years? Are we going to be looking at another situation where there isn't enough hunters to have an influence on the states to manage the game correctly and be able to keep season? I mean, we're losing seasons. Washington's losing bear seasons. Oregon's, losing seasons. You're losing seasons on certain game all over the West on certain animals. They get voted out by the population that's anti-hunting. So I get that, Ranella and Joe Rogan and Cam, they're bringing hunters in, which then gives us a voice, which then helps, combat some of the anti-hunting sentiment that we're up against. But then we're shooting ourselves in the foot while trying to limp on the other one.
It's definitely difficult, man. It's definitely difficult. Yeah, I'm no closer to figuring things out. That's for sure.
Yeah, we have these conversations. I wish we could stumble upon the answer to all of it here, but
well, we'll have to do this again, man. I really think we covered a lot, and man, I'd like to talk to you again. I think it's a good
conversation.
Yeah, you have some really good insight, and your plethora of knowledge. So,
well, let's stay in touch when you're out hunting out west or a hunting place. I'd love to hear about your travels and how you're doing and what your success is.
Yeah, and how do you pronounce your last name? Sporalsky.
Yeah,
Sporalsky. Okay. Yeah, Ken Sporalsky. Thanks, man. Thank you for coming on, dude. I appreciate it.
It's enjoyable. Man, I hope we all stumble across some answers here because it's not just about you and I. It's about, I have kids and hope to have grandkids one day. And hunting has been the greatest influence on my life.
Absolutely. I'm right with you. I would not, it defines me. It literally defines me.
Yeah. Well, very nice to talk to you, and you have a good evening. And
yeah, Ken, thank you. Thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it. Well, let's stay in touch and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Take care.
All right, buddy. Thanks.